Welcome back to The Mindful Way. Today, we're going to talk about something that can make us feel bad when it happens, oftentimes. It can kind of challenge how we see ourselves, and it can even feel sort of off. And we're talking about getting feedback, something that is super important to helping us to see things in new ways, but can also be really tough to process and sometimes doesn't really feel like it actually applies to us.
Yeah, feedback can come from many different intentions. It can come from a constructive, someone might be wanting to give you something that actually could benefit you. It could come from someone who just has a thorn in their behind and they just want to get angry. It could come from a loved one who's scared. And
for you.
It's more of just fear speaking. So I think it's important when you do receive feedback to think about where it's coming from, maybe one of those three viewpoints. Is it coming from a place of love? Is it coming from a place of fear? Because that'll help you deal with it.
Yes. And I think that's what I wanted to get into first is how we feel oftentimes when we get feedback and how human and normal that is. So we can feel really defensive. We can feel really hurt. We can feel sort of angry. We can feel like we can feel overly self-critical of ourselves after hearing feedback. I know I've felt that way many times and feel really misunderstood. And that's another thing. So something that has a potential to be really helpful to us, sometimes we get so off track and so upset that we got the feedback that it kind of doesn't even land. And then there's also the cases where someone gives feedback, like I kind of mentioned before, that's really doesn't land and doesn't feel like it's true to you. And we're going to talk about that too. But the first thing is just to really give you that space to feel what you're feeling when someone gives you feedback. Like if you take it personally and you're a little upset at first, that's okay. I think that's very normal. And I think that's the first step to sort of making the best out of the feedback.
Feedback becomes easier when you try something. For example, say you're starting a new project, a new endeavor, a new job. At the beginning, you're very unsure of what you need to do to quote unquote succeed, right? And whatever that means, to find your own voice in that space. And at that point, you're really, really susceptible to feedback. And, when I was getting started in photography, I would receive feedback or I would get feedback from some people I was working with. And at the time I was new, so
You mean photographers?
Right, from other photographers that I was working with. And at the time I was new, so I would take their feedback and I would maybe, okay, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes as I progressed, I started to see that their feedback was one way of doing things and it was their way of doing things.
Yeah.
And I started to realize like sometimes feedback is not a true or false scenario. It's about someone's voice. And I started to find that, okay, thank you for the feedback, but if I did it that way, it would align more with me and what I wanted to do out of my photography.
You would do it a little differently.
Right. And slowly it became easier to tune out, the other voices because the universe starts giving you reinforcement. But that beginning phase can be really, really challenging, especially. That's when the feedback, I think, we're all the most susceptible to feedback.
I was just going to say, like, starting something new is when we're kind of most vulnerable and we're most likely to get feedback. And there's so much that we're learning. So there's a lot to get wrong, quote unquote. So I think that's such a great story that you're going to get advice and things. And just that reminder that a lot of it will be helpful and a lot of it, maybe not and not applicable to you. And you're allowed to kind of say, what's right for me? Not. It might take time also for you to kind of learn that, right? Because you didn't really know right away. First of all, you were just like initially you were just kind of like, oh, I guess I have to do it this way, right?
Yeah.
And then you were like, oh no, wait, over time, this actually doesn't align with what feels right for me. So I'm going to show up in this way, not kind of the way.
And another thing too, and this is like a general thing with feedback that I've learned and I really think is important, is when you receive any type of feedback about anything, first, is the person that's giving you that feedback doing the thing you want to do? Because if they're not, it immediately discredits like how much energy you need to put into that by like 80%. Because a lot of times that's coming from fear or a negative place. If they're doing what you're looking to do, then maybe pay attention. In this situation, these people were doing what I was looking to do. So their feedback on how to do certain things, use a camera a certain way, take a photo a certain way, was worth paying attention to, but it still didn't align with where I ended up finding my own voice.
Yes.
So, but especially in that beginning phase, you especially when people are starting new things, you might get a lot of voices from parents, from people who know you in your life, and you're doing something that's odd to them, maybe something they don't do, have never done, and they don't know how to emotionally handle it. So their first instinct is to give you what they feel is good feedback.
Is this a good idea?
Yeah, and that's the most malleable face, like that is the point. That it's the most challenging part because
It's
that's
so
where
easy
you
to like go back inside, like
because
the
you don't
turtle.
yet have that confidence that you're going to build as you
Like,
do.
of course you don't. Yeah.
Right. So it's easy to let those voices take you and quiet you. Don't.
Yeah. An example of a time when I got tough feedback was a boss told me that thought I was being too shy and I needed to show up more and kind of be more comfortable with people and share more of myself with the people I worked with. And at the time, I felt so defensive and sort of misunderstood internally and just didn't really know even how to respond. And I think looking back at it now, I have a lot of compassion for the part of myself that is shy and how that can be good. And also, I think there is a lot of truth to what he said and ultimately encouragement to show up more and share more of myself. And he wanted me to feel more comfortable. So I think the way things land can be a little tough sometimes. Sometimes people say things in gentler ways than others. So I kind of navigated the best I could at the time. And so give yourself, again, that grace with how you feel at the time and sort of how you even react. And just it's helpful to take that break so that then afterwards you can sort of suss out, well, what is meaningful to me here? What can I learn from this? Because there's almost always something.
Yeah. Again, as long as it's coming from a good place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, our first instinct is usually to get a little defensive because that's just
the
human.
ego is like, what do you mean?
And it's okay. But then get curious. And this is something that's worked so well for me. As a matter of fact, own it, right? When someone gives you feedback, and sometimes it's not even like verbal feedback. Maybe if you're a business owner, you had a great conversation with a client, and then the client ends up ghosting you, or ends up going with someone else, or going, that's feedback. Really, it's a different type of feedback. It's not a verbal feedback, but it's really just giving you feedback on your process.
Yeah.
And I think it's very human to blame others.
Yeah.
And if you own it, and if you look at the feedback from a perspective of, can I improve? Is there anywhere in this information I received, whether it be someone telling me, hey, you need to do this more, or you need to do this, or a client ghosting you, is there something that I can do to make this process or make this better for me based on the information they gave me? If the answer is no, and really go inward. But if the answer is no, then drop it. But if the answer is yes, own it. Make a small change and recognize that if you just have that mentality of looking at the feedback you receive from a perspective of curiosity, that over time that will compound. Meaning that if you keep doing this over years, over months or years, you will grow so much. You won't even see it, but when you reflect, you'll see all of this growth. And it just starts with curiosity.
You are very good at that. Tom is very good at taking feedback and instead of putting blame on the other person, really saying, okay, how can I show up differently? What could I have done differently? And in a healthy way. And I think it can have such an impact on your business, on your personal relationships. And I think that is a really wonderful thing. So kind of going through just the 3 steps is to navigating feedback. The first thing is to allow yourself to feel it without judgment as much as you possibly can. And you might need time like outside of that interaction. And the second part, like you said, Tom, just now, is to get curious and kind of, the defensiveness is going to be there. But once you feel like you've been able to let go of that a little bit, the curiosity comes much easier. And, what here does resonate with me? What here could be really helpful for me to explore? And the third part is you deciding what is true for you and kind of deciding where am I going to take action or let this go and move on. And maybe this is just this person's thing, but not for me. And that's okay.
And honestly, like, I know it's challenging. Feedback can be really tough, but this is one of the biggest improvements I have ever made in business. It's one of the top 3 things in my life is simply always being curious. I mean, it hurts just as much as any other time, sometimes when I receive feedback, but being curious and then being productive or constructive, I should say, about whether or not I should take action on it. And it's almost like, okay, that's just part of the process. Is like, people are going to have opinions about things.
Yeah.
And I get to decide whether or not they are helping me or I ignore them.
Yes. So if you want to dig into this a little further, or if you just got feedback in a situation, and Tom, there was a great point you made before. Sometimes it's like nonverbal, like sometimes it's a very clear, like boss, employee sort of feedback. But if you got feedback in a way that was more nonverbal, like someone ghosted you or something didn't happen in a way you thought it would happen, when you're in that painful place, sometimes this is the best time to go through journal prompts like this or go through reflective questions like this. So you could ask yourself, what did the feedback bring up for you emotionally? Writing that down can be really therapeutic. So get it all out on paper if that's something you can create some time for right now. And then once you've kind of felt like you've gotten that out, was any part of it useful or clarifying? And can you offer yourself kindness for how you responded in the moment? There might be times where maybe we do get a little defensive, or maybe we don't say things in the most from kind of that calm place that we know we can speak from. So being kind to yourself, how you responded, and kind of exploring kind of how you can be aware of that, I guess, going forward. And then what do you know to be true about who you are and how you show up? And honoring that too in the efforts you are making.
Yeah, this all comes from a place of self-love. It comes from a place of compassion with yourself.
Yeah.
And the willingness to accept the fact that, hey, we all have room to grow.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to grow, and I'm willing to learn. And we all learned by, when we were little babies and we didn't know how to walk, we watched others. People gave us quote unquote feedback on how to walk. But at the end of the day, it was up to us to get up on our feet and figure out how to put one foot in front of the other. And that analogy really plays through with everything in life.
Yeah.
It's up to us, but people, most of the time, I hope most of the time, people have good intentions and they're worth listening to and helping us find our way.
Yeah.